Hello, Internet, and welcome back to another episode of the 4DQB show. If it looks like I have a bigger smile on my face than usual, it's for a very good reason, and it is all about who my special guest is today. Today will be a show of firsts, and as usual, I have my trusted research notes with me that I will be looking at quite often. And today's show is somewhat of a complete validation for the answer I gave to the question I was asked very often coming out of high school with multiple Power Five options to play football, which is why Princeton? My special guest today is actually my very first Princeton alum. And boy, did I hit the proverbial jackpot. Why Princeton, you ask? Well, here I am, blessed to be a lowly sophomore at Princeton, the number one ranked college in the country for the upteenth time in a row. And I'm interviewing someone who is living my dream as far as how he has lived his life since Princeton, off the field, in business, as well as his time spent giving back. If I can have a fraction of his success, I will be thrilled. I'm going to have to cut my normal intro in half and speak fast because his accomplishments to date have been so plentiful. He is a member of the class of 95, as well as a wide receiver on the legendary 95 Tiger team. He has a law degree, is a mentor, philanthropist, married to his beloved Trisha, and has three beautiful children. And let me not forget to mention that he is president and CEO of one of the coolest and most unique construction companies in the country, the JAG companies. Top it off, JAG is also one of the top 20 Hispanic owned companies in the country. Now, since I know my guest is beyond humble, I will stop here and just tell you all I am thrilled beyond belief to introduce and welcome Mr. Rolando Acosta to the 4DQB show.
Thank you. I wish I could tape that intro and share it everywhere I go. Just a couple of things is it was the team of 95, class of 96. So I want to make sure I rep my 96 team. Very honored, Logan. Been following you on LinkedIn for 2 years now since you first sent the Evite, when you were moving from high school to college, and to see what your accomplishments are as a lowly sophomore, rising up the ranks. It's humbling on my end to feel like I didn't get anything done in my first 2 years at Princeton.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, you probably wouldn't trade anything for where you are now, though. So, um, before we get started, just a reminder to those watching, though I have notes aplenty. Again, I never have a pre-interview with a guest, never. And not only do I like to be surprised by the answers, it also seems that my guests like to be surprised by the questions. So as promised, Mr. Acosta, this will not be a cookie cutter interview. Are you ready?
Yes, I've had the butterfly since this morning. I'm used to being in control of my meetings, control of my interviews, control, when I have to keynote speak somewhere, I manage it. I woke up this morning going, what is he going to ask me? Do I need to be worried about this stuff? So I'm
Okay.
really, really excited. I'm really excited.
Let's go. But before we take a deep dive into this interview and the business side, which will come a little later, I can always tell if my intro is good by how uncomfortable my guest looks after their introduction from their successes. So I think we did good. Um,
Excellent.
I say that somewhat facetiously, but I'm pretty sure one of the main traits of all my guests who are successful as you on and off the field is their humbleness. So when you hear an intro like that here, or when the many times you're being introduced, if you take that introduction and use it elsewhere, for an honor or charity work, do you say to yourself, boy, am I lucky? Or, I worked my butt off and deserve this, or a combination of both?
I would share it's all of those things. Anyone who reflects back on their life is going to say, have I done enough? If I ran into my younger self, what am I going to tell them about how life is going to turn out? It is humbling to see that the opportunities that life have presented me, I've been able to take advantage of them. And at the same time, you'll meet people who are 10x where you are, and you have a little bit more work to do. And that's both on the family side, the business side, the philanthropy side, the mentorship side. I feel like I'm in a good place, but there's other people that are doing better, and I could do better. So that's a driving motivation for sure. But when I look back, I think about when I was your age, coming out of my sophomore year, I was going to be working as a bank teller, because the hours were good. It was either 9 to 1, 12 to 3, get my workouts in. I'm at the Jersey Shore. I get to the beach at some point, and see where I am today. It's a long journey. It's a long journey and very proud. I'm very proud of the journey I've been on.
Cool. I think one thing that you mentioned that, people are gonna be 10x of you or whatnot. It's very similar to what my dad has said. Somebody's gonna always have it worse than you, somebody's always gonna have it better than you. So I really just resonated with that. I think a lot of people will too. Um, so we're gonna jump around time periods during this interview. So I want to go back to your senior year in high school, at Tom's River North in '92.
Yeah.
Okay. First, out of curiosity, and this is the first time I have ever asked this, your formative years were in the mid to late 80s. My father has been making me watch movies and listening to 80s music since I can remember, which I have enjoyed immensely. So to start this interview off on a light note, if you could pick one movie and one song from that time that would best describe a young Rolly, as your friends call you, what would it
Oh.
and why?
Wow. That and I'm a movie
Butterflies out.
and I'm a movie guy. You think about Tom Cruise and all the right moves. Steel Town guy, needs football to get out of town, has a coach who drives him hard, is in love with his high school girlfriend, finally gets that scholarship to go play somewhere. I mean, that was awesome. That's everything you want out of being a high school football player. It captured that era. I think that would be a good movie there.
Okay.
And in terms of songs, oh man, I mean the 80s that late 80s, early 90s, it was everything from you're listening to Heavy D and the Boys to Beastie Boys to Nirvana and Pearl Jam were coming into their own. To me is whoever I was hanging out with. There was groups that were into the rap music, there was groups that were into what was emerging as grunge, and who doesn't want to enter to some sort of Metallica song.
Yeah.
And I would guarantee your father and everybody else around my age, we all had a Journey song
Yeah.
at prom. So,
Yep.
you know, you want to capture the 80s, that's a whole lot. I'm not going to pick one, but
Okay.
I'm going to, each moment in that time had a song.
Great. Thank you. Um, Now I'm curious what recruiting and college decision making back in your senior year was like. I have no idea what it was like. I don't
Uh,
want to talk about your decision yet. Just want to start by learning if you were applying to schools based on academics or if you were being recruited as a football player, a combination of both. And also, what were some of the other schools that were in consideration?
Recruiting very different then than it is today. A lot of the athletes by the end of their junior year are already on a path, and it seems everything into their senior year is just check the box and we're on our way. So when I was playing, is coming out of my junior years, one of the most important elements was summer camps. And it wasn't just a 1 day specialty camp, receiver camp, kicking camp, quarterback camp. Camps were 4 to 5 days long, and you moved into a dorm. You were there for 4 to 5 days. You were doing double sessions. That was camp in the 90s, and that's how you got recognized. I did quarterback wide receiver camps that at that time were held at Ramapo College, and at that time was Trent State, which is now College of New Jersey. And then I had received an invitation to the Princeton University football camp, which was 4 days living in Wilson College, no air conditioning in the middle of the summer, trying to prove yourself. Way different process. And hopefully we'll circle back to the man who I met at that camp, who's now your head coach. So we'll
Okay.
get to that story later. So we enter your senior year. Everything's by mail. There's no email. There's no text. At some point, my parents, we worked with a recruiting service just to get stats out to colleges and universities. Very heavy on the academic side. I was very interested in using football as a means to an end. I wasn't going to be an NFL player. I was trying to use football to play 4 more years of college and try to get into the best academic institute I can get into. So that's where the Ivies came in. That's where the Patriot League came in. So my recruiting process involved, Princeton, Columbia, Penn, Holy Cross, Bucknell. So some of the same ones, 5'8", 145-pound receiver in high school would get interest from. It was not going to be Power Five. I'm a huge Miami Hurricanes fan. At that time, they were not sending letters of interest. And then you would take your recruiting trips in the winter. And along the way, you're sending in your applications, and you really didn't know where you were going until probably January, February of your senior year. You'd get likely letters, which was, your support. Hey, so long, we call them likely letters, as you get a letter from the school saying, so long as you don't blow it, you're likely to get accepted. So that was an awesome thing, but I didn't get that till I think either January, February of my senior year, and then a formal letter of acceptance in April. It was a very prolonged process compared to some of the athletes today who, by the end of their junior year, summertime, most of them have made decisions unless you're weighing multiple options.
Right.
But I wanted the highest academics. I wanted, means to an end, good team, local. Princeton was everything I ever wanted since I was a kid. So it fit right in there.
You just explained my answer. Which, I tell all my long snapping students, like, use this long snapping thing to get you into a school you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
ordinarily get into. So thank you. Now, the $1 million question or $1 million answer, why Princeton? What put them over the top of everybody else? What was it like when you told your parents, hey, I'm going to Princeton?
It was I just got chills just thinking about it, right? I was being recruited. You were at that time, I think you guys are still allowed 5 trips. Like we were allowed 5 official visits. So I lined up a few. Princeton was my first one. I get on campus early January. I take the tour. My mom and dad at that time were invited. Steve and Vicky Verbit were hosts of theirs at the Nassau Inn. That's how far back I go with Coach Verbs. They were the host. I get on campus. I walk around. Coach Joe Susan, who's now at Rutgers, was actually my direct recruiter. And at the end of the campus visit, he goes, "So what do you guys think?" It was snowing. It was cold. My dad just looks at Coach Susan and says, "Rolly will be here next year. Where can I go get warm?" And I'm like, "I guess I'm coming here." So it was very exciting. Is I want to live the memory that my dad made the decision for me because he was cold and it was snowing and he's like, "This is it. It doesn't get any better than this." So it was a really cool moment. I forget which courtyard we were in. It was at the end of the tour. So that was a very awesome moment for the family. And I was first generation. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and to be able to go to Princeton University, play football, it was just amazing experience for all of us.
Yeah, and I'm glad you went in talking about your father because I have some cool questions I was hoping I
Cool.
could ask you. Um,
Absolutely.
so we're going to take a quantum leap in time and talk about the legendary, I guess 96,
95. I was class of 96,
95, 95,
95 season.
95
Right.
Princeton football team, which was your senior year at Princeton in a moment. But first I want to ask you this. I think it's fascinating when I do interviews with guests here on YouTube and we talk about memories they had that they were not part of, for lack of better words, during the social media era. This is the first time I've ever asked this. Today's students get to document in literally nanoseconds any and all memories they wish to keep forever. But on the flip side, they also have to be aware of their actions and can't be themselves with the fear that someone might take a picture or video that they might not want to remember or for anyone to see. So, since you have experienced not having social media as a child growing up and as a student, but now you use it as a business owner, and more importantly, have to be aware of your children's experience with it, which one would you have preferred growing up with as a child and a student, or with or without? I'm not gonna let you off the hook here. This
Well, it is very easy to
is
answer.
my question.
I am so glad my friends and I, my teammates and I did not have social media.
That's
It
what
was,
I was.
we are entrepreneurs, business leaders, doctors, lawyers, scientists, educators. We don't need anything from the past. Not that it was terrible.
Yeah,
We were, my dad always said, with my friends and I, just because we were intelligent didn't mean we were smart. So there was some actions we may have taken, some good times. We were no different than any other college student. But social media, not in the 92 to 96 era, was fantastic. So that I'll just lead for me from there.
yeah,
Documented in my memory, documented in photos that every now and then you go in the attic. open up an album or you open something up and these photos fall out and it's just a rush of memories. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What I would share for somebody like you and your teammates is it's fun times, good. You just don't have to document everything.
Yeah.
You got to scrub it a little bit, and it's similar to any business leader that types an email and maybe doesn't want to hit send. That's
Right.
great. Take the photo, but do you really need to share it? Doesn't need to live in the cloud for the next 50, 60, 70 years? Probably not. But again, is it's you guys are you guys are going to be running the world, and maybe that'll be part of it. But to me is I have a 19-year-old daughter, 15-year-old son, 14-year-old daughter. Try to share with them to be intelligent about what you share. It's okay to post and know where you are, but it's a double-edged sword. Logan, as you know, is what do we share? Only the good stuff. Nobody ever shares when they're on the dark side of things. Nobody ever shares, the F on the paper or the failed whatever. We need to be better at scrubbing that from a mental health perspective. So I'm always very mindful to share with my kids that just because you see that in somebody's life doesn't mean it's perfect. There's always more going on in the background that we're not privy to.
Very true. Very true. So let me set the scene for this next group of questions. It's the 95 Princeton football season. For a little historic perspective, from 1869 to 1950, Princeton had won 28 national championships. Then in 1957, the Ivy League Conference was born. Prior to 1995, from 57 to 95 to be exact, Princeton had only won 7 Ivy League titles, and the last outright title was 64. From to 95, that's 31 years. In 92, Princeton shared the title with Dartmouth, and in the 93 and 94 season, Princeton had losses to its main rival at the time, UPenn, and both years UPenn won the Ivy title outright. In 95, UPenn was favorites to win again. I'm going to ask you about some of your teammates and, of course, about the game with Penn in 95 in
Sure.
a moment. But my first question about the season is talk to me a little about what preseason was like that year. Was there a lot of internal pressure on the seniors to win their first final season and avenge the Penn losses? And what was the feeling among you and your teammates on your chances?
We played as as sophomores and juniors because remember, or I'm not going to say remember, but to set the stage, we were the last freshman football team
Yeah.
in Ivy League history. So when we came in that first fall, we were our own team.
Mm,
Then we got elevated to varsity for sophomore, junior, senior year. We played with some very, very talented people, very talented teams, very close games, never a blowout. We were always in it. We just couldn't finish. And it was disheartening because they're all good, 94, 95 guys, all great guys. I wish I had 3 titles with them. It was something that we're still bonded, still friends. It would have been great to share that with them. So coming into the 95 season, I don't know what was expected of us based on the talent that was lost. I think we thought we were good. I think the coaches were hopeful that we thought we were better than we were. But we wanted to win. We wanted to go out on top. We had 10 games, as you know, in the Ivy League, 10 games, 10 weekends. That's all you got left. Let's go play, line them up, and that's how we came into it. But we were sparked that year.
yeah.
Is Princeton made an incredible decision. We went from Converse to Nike.
Oh, that was
So
it.
so when we showed up for our senior camp, and it's not like you guys, you show up, you get to your dorm and everything else. Is that the previous 2 years we lived in what was called Well Fieldhouse, and for the teams that played ahead of me know what it's like to have the track locker room set up with rows of bunk beds,
Oh
and
my,
we all slept in the same place. So my senior year was the first time that the school allowed you to move into a dorm, and now you lived in a dorm, then went to practice. So there was a couple things that were lining up. Was once we were no longer in Caldwell Fieldhouse, we were living in dorms. So a senior got, assigned to freshmen, and then juniors and sophomores lived together. Nike came on board. We were like, now we're legit. I mean, we had to be the last team in America that wore Converse Cons cleats.
Oh my
And
God.
now we were Nike. We felt we were on top of the world, man.
Yeah.
We're a Nike team. Like things were going to change. So there was a lot of energy. There was a lot of good energy. We had good players in the class of 96, strong players in 97, 98, some, the 99 guys, all good guys. Things were gelling. Things were gelling. And we were excited to start the year.
Cool. That's exciting. Converse? What? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna jump to week 8 that year. You're 7-0 and undefeated in Ivy League play and headed to dreaded Franklin Field in Pennsylvania to take on UPenn, who is 5-1 in Ivy League play at this time. Even though there are 2 games to go after this game would ultimately decide if the 95 team your senior year would win an outright Ivy League championship. So my question is twofold. What was practice like that week? And I don't think most people realize just how hard it is to play varsity sport, especially football, and attempt to excel in the classroom at such a rigorous academic school like Princeton. So how hard was it for the team to do both that week and for you in general over your career at Princeton?
I can't say I remember exactly the week being different than anything else. It was just, keeping that energy going forward. We were I'd share that we were probably very cognizant that if we don't beat Penn, the first 7 were meaningless.
Yeah.
That's who we wanted to. We had a losing record against them. They were good, man. They were representative of Philadelphia. Good kids, good athletes, just gritty. They knew how to win, and we needed to go in to Franklin Field, as Coach Tasha used to say, as rude guests, and that was our goal, is to arrive and get nasty and win. So I can't say the week of preparation was any different. It was more about being focused and not and keeping the emotional energy. And with schoolwork, man, I try to explain to people is how, when you're sitting in the huddle during practice and the A team is going, B team is going, A team is going, B team is doing for the reps, and you're sitting waiting for your rep, and you have the center and the guard are talking about thermodynamics and engineering, and I'm worried about my Latin American politics paper that is due, and I have mental block, and somebody else is doing quantitative physics, and somebody else has got math. I'm like, what other college or what other league in the country during practice in the huddle are you? And then I remember, I think it might have been senior year, one of our starters could not reschedule his chem lab. So
Oh.
we would redo the entire schedule so that the one day a week he could take off for chem lab. How many schools have somebody leaving, with 30 minutes left in practice because they needed to make chem lab?
Yeah.
It's pretty
Right.
wild. Pretty
And
wild.
yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
So it's an incredible balance, right? Talk about time management and balance. We learned it. We learned it there.
Yeah, I think Princeton's also the only locker room in the country that has an organic chemistry book on the
Yeah.
table as soon as you walk in. Now it's game time. Because of time's constraints, spoiler alert, Princeton won 22-9, and my guest had a huge play in this victory. Watch.
Penn quarterback Mark DeRosa would have a long day throwing into the Princeton secondary, led by the nation's leading interceptor, Damani Leach. Darryl Oliveira gave DeRosa a taste of what was to come with this sack in the second quarter. On the second half's opening kickoff, the Tigers pinned Penn deep in their own end. This set up the offense in great field position. On 3rd and 8, Rolly Acosta made a spectacular catch at the 2. Mark Washington took it in from there for the Tigers' 3rd touchdown.
That's
Great.
pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So
Yeah, so as someone who did not have very many catches in his career, and I've done career nights for you guys, and when I tell them, like, I think my career is like 18 total catches, that's like a crappy game for one of your wide receivers against like a low level school. I mean, that's my entire 3 years of varsity is those catches. So I try to make every one of them count, and that one is as vivid a memory as any. It was pretty awesome. That was a pretty awesome catch.
So were you the main target on that play?
No, I was like the third option. That was, our quarterback, Brock Harvey, fantastic athlete, great improviser. In that drive, if I remember, there was a big bull rush upfield. He got flushed out of, flushed out of the pocket. I was the backside drag, and I don't think in the history of Princeton football has anybody thrown the ball to the backside drag. And I just kept coming across, and found an opening, and somehow Brock just got the ball there right at the sideline, made the catch, dragged the feet, made sure I was in bounds, and from there is hand it off to Mark Washington, and boom, punches it in. That's it, nail in the coffin. Good night, Quakers. It was
Hell
awesome.
yeah.
Yep,
That
yep. It
ball,
was, and at that time, Logan, is I think if you check it, there was over 30,000 people at that game, which is hard to fathom today in the Ivy League because there's so many options, so many things. But that was the most amazing part. Is we came down the stairs from Franklin Field, and we were just, I mean, it was, holy shit, this is like legit college football right now. There's 30,000 people ready to watch this game, and it was a battle. It was intense. It was great. That's as memorable as it gets for me. I mean, it's making a play in a crowd like that for your team that's believed in you this entire time. It was awesome. It was awesome.
that's so cool. That ball's coming down on you. What
Yeah,
exactly is going through your head? I mean, you're covered.
yeah. I split two guys, and in latter years, we were out in Philadelphia one time with them, and they're like, "We still don't know how you got between us and made that catch."
Yeah, that's
So
so
it was, yeah, Brock put it on there, and I guess what you think in your mind is everything goes blank, right? You don't hear anything. And I would like to think in my head, I was just like, just make the catch.
that's
Don't, I had my whole family there. I'm like, don't embarrass yourself. Future you is going to be watching this. Do you want to be talking about this as a catch or as the drop? So it was and just like any one of us, there was just a tremendous level of unselfishness. I wanted to make the play for us,
yeah,
just like Brock wanted to make the throw for us.
yeah. That's sick. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was intense.
Yeah. So now, what are some of your fondest memories and moments of that game that you were not involved in? Is there any one play that stands out to you? You remember, like, you just remember this play?
No, I wouldn't say there's any one play, but it's just our defense dominated. If you watch the video, the highlight is Darryl Oliveira, 99, who was a defensive end, just Princeton D-line legend, owned Mark DeRosa. And Mark's a good guy. Mark went on to like 15 years in Major League Baseball. And, in the small world that it is, I'm friends with Mark's brother, Kevin, or, his daughter, and my son went to elementary, middle school together. So, there's a little bit of history there. You had Miles Masick, who went on to, I think he made practice squad with the Detroit Lions as a wide receiver for Penn. I mean, they were stacked. They were loaded. It's just that day was our day, and our defense was not going to be beat that day. They frustrated the heck out of Mark, and that just set the tone for the rest of the game. You had interceptions, you had plays, everybody had a piece of it. And just at the end is that total team celebration on their P was awesome. And
Nice.
the fans, and what's memorable is, I'm telling you, they purposely shut off the hot water because we all went to go take a shower, and it was a cold day. We went to take a shower. All there was cold water, and we were like, we don't care. We won.
Well,
Let's just get out of town.
that's
So it was we came down the stairs, and the family, fans, everybody's waiting for us. It was that one moment where you felt like a legit college football player because it was a big game and we won.
30,000 is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
You know where Mark DeRosa went to high school?
He went to Bergen Catholic, right? Yep.
Of course.
No, tremendous athlete. Tremendous athlete.
So, before we talk about your incredible successes off the field as president and CEO of JAG Companies, I want to mention the names of a couple of your teammates that you're talking about. Like, your teammates are unbelievable. Not just from your senior year, for two reasons. One, because their names and accomplishments, especially off the field, are a main part of the answer as to why Princeton. I'm speaking of names such as All World, All Ivy defensive back Damani Leach, who is currently the president of the Denver Broncos. Not too shabby. Linebacker Hans Schroeder, who is currently executive VP and CEO of NFL Media. Not too shabby. All Ivy legendary running back and record holder Keith Elias, who graduated the year before, who's senior director of player engagement of the NFL. As well as Wall Street superstar Nick Brophy, who is a superstar on and off the field. My apologies about not naming more, but it's Monday and Mr. Acosta has a big company to run and get back. Though my research and Princeton trains you well doing research. If I read it correctly, I read a LinkedIn post of you saying the following. My Princeton football teammates are some of the most influential people in my life. And this guy right here keeps us humble and hungry. So proud of Stumpy's real life persona, Dr. Samuel Young. He loves to quote Ric Flair, to be the best, you need to beat the best. He lives by that mantra and expects the same from us. Talk to me about Stumpy and any other teammates who are still influential to you. And if you can talk a little bit about your captain, Dave Patterson, who I read about in various quotes from others that they would run through a brick wall for him anytime he would ask.
Yeah, so man, you just name dropped some of the most amazing people in my life. I'm just writing them down here in my scratch pad so I don't forget them. Everything, Damani Leach, D Leach was a sophomore defensive back our senior year. He was fantastic. Hans was my year, converted from wide receiver to strong safety and brought the hammer whenever you needed him to. Keith Elias, dear friend, we played against each other in high school. He became, he was a captain when I was a sophomore, and to this day lives in my town, and we're still good friends. Great guy, came to my 50th birthday. Nick Brophy, he's an amazing, Brof is awesome. That 94 guys, now he's investing for himself, and he owns one of the best croissant places in Spring Lake. And then you get to the other two guys, right? So I'm an emotional guy, and I get jacked up when I hear their names, and I get emotional. Stumpy, right? To this day, am I going out with Dr. Samuel Young or am I going out with Stumpy? Because those are two very different people, and I need to either show up as Rolly, the CEO, or college Rolly, Stumpy's wingman. There's so many others I can jump in that, from nicknames from, Carter Westfall Log, Brad Pulaski, the big dog. You can go down the line of all these guys, but Stumpy's our ringleader. That's the best way to describe him.
Okay.
You're talking about a guy blue collar guy, grew up in Caldwell, New Jersey, willed his way to being a starter as a nose tackle, and he was built for the job. That's why he's Stumpy. He's as wide as he is tall. It was like, Sam, just get in there, make a pile, and he would do it. Brilliant in science, history, math, you name a subject, the guy just knew it all. And he would just say it in a manner that humbled you in what you knew, but it was funny going, how does that come out of a person that looks like this?
Yeah.
We're very good friends today. He's during COVID, somehow he managed to get all of us into a text group that today became a trip every 2 years called Lagapalooza.
That's
That
so
as many guys as they can get together, all willed by a guy who just refused to say that, a pandemic or distance was going to keep us apart. We're going to keep this squad together. Just a fantastic guy. He's my wife, who was my girlfriend through college, knows all his stories. And you talk about not wanting social media, him and I together is not social media worthy. But a great guy. And then, to bring it all together, David Patterson, right? D-Pat, number 43. You'd look at him, maybe a high school strong safety today, right? At his current size.
Wow.
You did not want to get hit by David Patterson. He would send you into tomorrow. And then you talk about a man, a few words that any one of us would run through a wall for. Absolutely. He wasn't, he was a rah-rah guy, but it wasn't these elaborate speeches. It was just a few statements, a few words, and you were ready to go. And it was, that year, him as our sole captain, elected sole captain. There was nobody else worthy of being captain but him.
Wow.
And then all the way from the 96 through the 99 guys, put him up on a pedestal for what he did. And then he willed his way to a game. One time we were playing Colgate, somehow we needed to create a fumble. Patterson leaps over the offensive defensive line, swipes at the, quarterback running back exchange, causes the fumble. Boom, we win the game. We take the ball, score, game over. That's the way it was. So he's going to throw the game on his back if he had to. And again, another guy that we've all stayed very close with, and he monitors what's going on in all our lives. And, from that group too, is I think you're going to touch on it later, is what it really meant to me was when my father passed this summer. And it was personal messages from each one of those guys you mentioned. And some of them even came, altered trips, altered, their work and family schedules to come pay their respects to me and my family. So just tells you the quality of people that Princeton brings in, and that you'll be able to maintain, for the next, what's the next 40 look like? That's it. That's the group right there. Name any one of those guys, and I'll go 40 years with them any day.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it ahead of our conversation, not sure what you were going to ask. Is, you think about it. I'm coming up on, 27, 28 years out for my reunion this weekend. I only had 4 years with these guys. That's it. You only have 4 years, but it created a lifetime. And it's hard to imagine anything else besides college football and at Princeton that can allow you to build that bond over 4 years that goes on for a lifetime.
Yeah.